Well, good morning, everyone, and thrilled to have Dr. Gary Lindner on the call to present some ideas that can change your whole life. Gary is a physiologist, a PhD. As you'll discover with this presentation, he is a professor. He's taught a lot of university courses, and he's one of the greatest advocates of just taking charge of your own life. And we're going to talk about some powerful things that you can do to dramatically change your life. And I'll just turn that over to you, Gary.
Well, thank you, Dave, and thank you for inviting me to be on the show with you this morning. I really appreciate it. We're going to talk about self-care. We're going to talk about the way you can be healthier by some simple, easy choices. And I like to start this presentation really with the reason why we developed it, the impetus behind it. And it was just a couple years ago, I was invited to speak at a national health conference, and I was working on my PowerPoint up in my hotel room before the evening before the morning of the presentation, and an advertisement came on the TV. I'm a baseball fan, so I had a baseball game on in the background. And here's what this advertisement said. It said there are 26 million diabetics in the U.S., 54 million are at risk. Don't worry. We can treat and manage your diabetes so you can lead a normal, productive life. Now, I did a double take, to say it minimally. I mean, I was flabbergasted when I heard this advertisement. Really, it's pretty much a brainwashing to say that chronic disease is a normal part of life, or that type 2 diabetes is a normal part of life. Don't worry. We can treat and manage it. This advertisement came from what used to be our corner drugstore, which is now called your corner wellness center. And to me, that really has nothing to do with wellness. It's all about treating and managing. So I said, something's got to change here. Something's amiss. People are thinking that chronic disease or chronic issues are just part of getting older. How many times have we heard people say that when we're chatting about something, about their joint problems or headaches or other things or bad backs or even more severe things? They'll say, oh, that's just part of getting older. It's not. It's really, these things can be prevented. So I started to think about this and said, we really need to start to educate people a little bit more on how to be healthy. And this presentation really is the result of that. And it's really about being healthy by choice, not by chance. We use self-care as an active process through which people become aware of and then make choices for a healthier life. Our tagline, our battle cry, and it's almost a battle cry, is be healthy by choice, not by chance. Because if we leave our health to chance, chances aren't very good we're going to be healthy. I use this diagram, this analogy of a wheel of fortune. And if you were to spin it and leave your health to chance on this wheel of fortune, what's the percentages you're going to be healthy? They aren't very good. And if we look at the statistics behind this, here they are. 1/2 of all American adults age 18 and above have at least one chronic condition. 1 out of 4, or 25% of us, have 2 or more. Chronic disease is responsible for 7 out of 10 deaths in the U.S. and also globally. And by the time we're 65, now get this, by the time we're 65, 80% of us have at least one chronic disease, 80% of us, and many have more. Chronic disease represents, and here's another figure I think we need to be aware of as well, Dave, that chronic disease represents 86% of our nation's healthcare costs, which is currently about $3.2 trillion. So we're talking about lots of money here that are spent on treating and managing chronic diseases. Now, the Centers for Disease Control, World Health Organization, National Institutes of Health all say that up to better than 80%, 80 to 85% of all chronic conditions could be prevented before they can be prevented. Yet we are spending most of our healthcare dollar on treating and managing what you consider to be preventable diseases. Now, we fill 4.3 billion prescriptions a year in the U.S. Let's think about this for just a second, all right? Now, why is that? And I think part of that is that we're taught our entire lives to be consumers of modern medicine, and specifically of pharmaceutical medicine. When we were young, at least within my generation, when we were young and we had a headache, we went to our moms and say, "Mom, my head hurts." What did she do? She gave us a baby aspirin, all right? She didn't ask, when's the last time we had a good glass of water? She didn't look for more natural solutions. So we've been taught to be consumers of modern medicine, like I said, specifically pharmaceutical medicine. If we look at this, the U.S. represents 4.4% of the world's population, yet we consume 75% of the pharmaceutical drugs in the world. Now, that's an interesting figure as well. So 7 out of 10 Americans take at least one prescription drug, and in the ages of 50 to 64, the average person is on 19.2 prescriptions. Now, this has got to change. The prescription drugs is the largest or the fastest growing fraction of our healthcare costs. As you can see from this slide here, in less than 20 years, and in 20 years it nearly doubles. It goes up 15 to 20% every year, and it's a huge problem. So why is this? What's changed all of a sudden? If we look at it this way, in the 1900s, early 1900s, the biggest cause of disease, the biggest cause of death were infectious diseases, communicable diseases. They were flu, influenza, gastrointestinal infections, things like that. If we look at it now, and they were responsible for 70, 75% of the deaths. If we look currently, it's chronic disease. So we've done a very good job of preventing infectious or communicable diseases, but we haven't in preventing with chronic issues. So why is this? What's changed? I think we have to ask, what in our world has changed? Have we changed? There's a good question. Have we changed biologically very much in the last 100 years? No, but we've changed just about everything else around us. If we look at this, there's 4 things in the self-care awakening that we focus on. And the first is environmental toxicity. We live in a toxic world. There are toxins in the air we breathe, the water we drink, in our soil, in the food we eat, in our homes, in our offices, in schools where our kids go to school, just about everywhere. If we look at the second thing we're going to talk about water. We're going to talk about dehydration and that effect on our health. We're going to talk about sleep quality, primarily about poor sleep quality or a sleep deficiency and how that affects our health. And we're going to talk about weight matters. These are all issues that are contributing to this problem of these chronic disease. So if we look at environmental toxicity, we've got a big problem here. And this is a problem we've been aware of, but people really don't know what to do about it. It's said that each of us, and I think this figure is low, have more than 200 contaminants in our bodies, and 93% of us have BPAs in our bodies. There have been some really, really good studies showing that our pollution in our bodies is increasing over time. And there was a great study done in 2005 by the Environmental Working Group that took umbilical cord blood of newborn infants and then analyzed that for toxic chemicals. They found 287. And those are just the chemicals that they tested for. There were many others they probably could have tested for. And this has been substantiated by other studies as well. The thing that this looks at, the point that jumps out to me here is that if we were to ask the question, who is at greatest risk for chronic issues in our society, would it be the older person or the younger person? I think from some of these studies, we'd have to say it would be the younger person because they are compromised more at birth. And so their chances of acquiring more toxins as they age to hit a tipping point, if you will, to where it then manifests itself in a chronic issue is much greater, and it's much shorter. And if we look at the statistics, aren't we seeing chronic issues show up earlier and earlier in our lifetimes? Aren't we seeing more and more childhood type of diseases and chronic problems? We are. So I think this really illustrates this point. Let's talk a minute about water, because water does matter. It's not just a beverage choice. It's an essential nutrient. You know, we can live for months and for a long time with lots of different, without other nutrients, other types of nutrients, but only a few days without water. The problem here is that we just don't drink enough water. 75% of us walk around chronically dehydrated every day. Now, we're about 70% water, and water is important for just about every physiological process that goes on in our bodies. So to deprive our body of that can really lead to many health problems. You know, just a 2.5% reduction in hydration results in a 25% reduction in energy and in efficiency. A 15% is usually, 12 to 15% is usually fatal. So water is very important, and a lack of it, or just plain not drinking enough water and staying hydrated, can lead to many, many health issues. Sleep. Now, here's another thing. And a lot of times with these two, it's our perception. We just don't get enough sleep. We perceive sleep. Our perception of sleep is that it's an unproductive time of our day, when physiologically it's probably our most productive time of the day. You know, this is a quote by William C. Dement, the father of sleep medicine, that says, "Healthy sleep has been empirically proven to be the single most determinant in predicting longevity, more important than diet, exercise, or heredity." So a lack of sleep. So look at this. I mean, this is from National Institutes of Health, and says that the average American sleeps less than 7 hours per night. Now, I'm going to tell you, that's not enough. We need to go through 5 cycles of sleep per evening. Each of those cycles, and more of this information, Dave, people can see on some of our videos and other presentations. We have presentations on water matters, sleep matters, weight matters. So we just plain don't get enough sleep. We need to go through 5 repetitions of a 5 sleep cycle. And the minimum it takes is 90 up to 110 or 120 minutes for each of those. And we really just can't achieve that in 7 hours or less. So we need to sleep more. Lack of sleep or a sleep deficiency can cause all kinds of health problems. Weight matters. Now, here's one, and I always leave this for last because this is usually the last one anybody wants to talk about, but we do have an issue. Here's a study done by the Lancet, one of the oldest prestigious medical journals in the world, basically saying that for the first time in history, obese people outnumber underweight people. And this was a huge study. I mean, it was in 200 countries with millions and millions of people, 19.2 million participants. This is pretty shocking to me that this actually is come to fruition, if you will, when it comes to weight issues. And here's the thing I like to make people aware of, and that is sugar. Now, a lot of times don't even know how much sugar that we're consuming a day. And the reason being is that it's hidden in our food. 80% of the food items you buy in the grocery have added sugar to them. And I like to use a little story here to illustrate this point. I was doing a presentation down in Southern California in Irvine, and I'm originally from Newport Beach, and I was staying with my sisters, my older sister who lives down there. and she was cooking dinner. And I was trying to keep my sugar consumption under 25 grams a day at that point in time. And she says, well, I've got a really good, healthy dinner for us. I said, terrific. What are we having? And she told me what we were having. And then she said, and we're having green beans. And I said, oh, I love green beans. Are they fresh or are they frozen? And she said, they're frozen. I really didn't see any good looking fresh ones, and I bought frozen. I said, I'll probably pass on the green beans, even though I really like them, because there's too much sugar in them. There's sugar added to frozen green beans. And older sisters, as they will, I mean, her response was, oh, there is not. They would not add sugar to frozen green beans. I said, well, let's look at the label. So she looked at the label on the package, and she was shocked. There was 5 grams of sugar added per serving to those frozen green beans. So I tell this story so people will realize that start to check some labels. And as you're checking these labels, be aware of how much sugar has been added, and really in your consumption of what you're eating per day. I mean, a slice of bread can have 4 to 5 grams of sugar, and this can add up. So let's look at this really. In 1822, the average American consumed 9 grams of sugar a day. In 2012, the average American consumed 153 grams of sugar a day. Now that's a 16-fold increase in 200 years. And as I mentioned before, have we changed biologically very much in the last couple hundred years? No. But have what we're putting in our body really has changed a lot, and it can't tolerate it. I almost tongue-in-cheek say, even if we had a pancreas the size of our liver, we would not be able to tolerate 153 grams of sugar a day without some serious negative health ramifications. So really be aware of this. And in order to do that, just start checking some labels. And one good fact to keep in mind, or good figure to keep in mind, is that when we're labeled in grams, almost always in grams on the food label, and at 4 grams of sugar equals 1 teaspoon. So if we're consuming 153 grams of sugar a day, that's like putting 2.5 teaspoons in your mouth about every waking hour. Now, nobody really would ever do that. So just really become aware of this. Recommended daily sugar consumption for women is about 6 teaspoons or 25 grams, and for men, about 9 teaspoons or 36 grams. So we really want to be aware of this. Sugar is very addictive, and we want to break that addiction. And a great way to do that is with protein. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the solutions we have within our active wellness program to help you do this. But eating protein is a great way to curb those sugar cravings. And it gives you some energy. It doesn't spike your blood sugar up and down. It's just a great way to do that. This slide has a bunch of symptoms on it. I show this a lot when I do presentations, and especially if I'm doing a presentation that has a lot of people in the health-related fields. And as I show it, I ask them, as you look at these symptoms, what are they indicative of? And I usually ask the audience for some answers. And the answers I get are chronic disease after chronic disease after chronic disease, because they are symptoms of many different types of chronic diseases. But they are also symptoms of environmental toxicity, dehydration, poor sleep, or just plain excess sugar consumption. And those are the 4 things that we're looking at. So what I'm saying here really is that chronic disease is not a normal part of life. It can be prevented, 80 to 85% of them, with some really simple, easy choices. And we are advocates. I am an advocate for NECAN and NECAN Active Wellness Technologies because we help with these areas. So for example, with Weight Matters, as far as excess sugar, we have a wonderful everyday organic weight management pack. I'll highlight just one product in here, and I would love to have the time to highlight them all. but with the Kenzen Vital Balance protein shake. This is an awesome product. I start every morning with it. In fact, Heather and I just had a shake before we tuned in on the presentation here. Gives you energy, gives you an alertness, gives you a feeling of well-being, if you will. And it doesn't set you up for failure during the day by consuming a high caloric, high sugar, high carbohydrate type of breakfast. It really evens everything out. We have special presentations on this product as well, and on the weight management ones that anybody listening to can take a look at. For quality sleep, we have all of our Kenko sleep products. Now, we aren't in conversation mode here, so I will just relate another story of my own, a personal story. Pretty much throughout my adult life, my sleep was very bad. I was one of those people that very active, brain active all the time. I knew sleep was important, but I had a hard time falling asleep. And once I fell asleep, I woke up. In other words, I would, fall asleep, wake up, look at the clock about every hour and a half, every 2 hours. Interrupted sleep pattern. Now, I invested in the Nikken sleep system, and the difference was night and day. Is it for a pun? All right, tongue in cheek. Get in bed, fall asleep, stay asleep, wake up in the morning, and full of energy, and slept like I did when I was a kid. Now, we also have a Sleep Matters presentation. I suggest take a look at it, and we talk about some of the reasons why and how these active wellness technologies in these sleep products help us get a better night's sleep. So we have a solution for that. For dehydration, not only do we need to drink more water, but we want to drink a better quality water. This is the best water on the planet. We have the home unit with the waterfall. We have the sport bottle to travel so you can have quality water with you. And we have the shower head so you aren't bathing in water with environmental toxins, i.e. chlorine and chlorine byproducts. So we have a solution for that as well. For our environmental toxicity, basically you could look at pretty much our whole product line. We have our water technologies, we have our sleep products, which is a natural sleep environment made from natural materials with no off-gassing. We have an air system to help clean up the air in your home or your office, or even in your automobile when you're driving. So how's that? We have organic skincare products, hair care products, and we have a whole line of nutritional support to help detoxify and help keep that body burden in check and help your body do that. So really, that's why we're advocates here for Nikken and for our wellness technologies, because they really provide some solutions to those 4 areas that are really causing many health challenges in our society. So this is why we say be healthy by choice, not by chance. Don't leave your health to chance. Take this stuff seriously because really it's a big problem. Chronic disease is not going down, it's going up. Dave did a great article a couple of weeks ago talking about the current status in healthcare, and it's in line to be our biggest business. And the biggest part of that is treating and managing preventable diseases. So, Dave, I also want to mention, while we have the broadcast on, you can unmute, we have a great way for people to get some more information. They have some choices here. You can become a customer and take part in our active wellness self-care programs. That's free. You get some great information. The person who invited you on this presentation can show you how to do that. But you also, to me, this is a mission. It's to share this information. And I love doing these presentations because I know I'm sharing it to a lot of people at the same time. But also we're looking for people to pick up our banner, to reiterate our battle cry of be healthy by choice, not by chance. So we can make a difference here, really. And on the same line, if we're doing that, we have a presentation on December 9th, and you can talk a little bit more about this if you want to. And it's more about being wealthy by choice, not by chance. because we really don't want to leave our finances to chance either. You know, what if we look at our biggest killer, regardless of what it is, it boils down to a couple things, and one of the main things is stress. And if you look at the biggest cause of stress in our society, it's financial issues. So this all kind of ties in together, and I love that about what we do. So Dave, thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Zig Ziglar, he said that money's not the most important thing, but it's right up there next to oxygen. And I think that's
we all need to take deep breaths.
Yeah, rich people statistically live longer than broke people. So that is something to think about. I think of just some of the things that you've brought up here that really, I think I don't remember the doctor that said it, but he just observed that if drugs were the answer, then we should be the healthiest people on the planet.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then of course you look at those advertisements, and apparently they work because they have so many of them. And half of the advertisement is they're talking really fast about all of the bad things that will happen to you if you take these. And it's fun to take something that has side benefits instead of side effects, which is
absolutely
really for a bad effect. Yeah. Wow. Thank you.